Hello, and welcome to Heal Yourself with me, Sarah Dawkins. I'm here to help you see that your body heals itself and share people who've already healed themselves, along with health and wellness tips. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Heal Yourself with me, Sarah Dawkins. My guest today is Rukmani, and she was born and raised in Lima, Peru. As a child and young adult, she suffered from depression, anxiety, self-destructive patterns, as well as bulimia, anorexia, self-distorted image, and she tried to commit suicide. After this, her light within ignited in the form of a phrase, "There's got to be more to life than suffering." And life became a flow of wisdom through different teachers and experiences. And she's dedicated her life to help empower other sisters around the world. So welcome, Rukmani. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, sister. What an honor. I'm so grateful.
I know I've introduced you and shared some of your healing. Would you like to share with the listeners what you've healed and how you've healed it?
Of course, of course. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to be here with us. So I will have to say the biggest healing, was bulimia and anorexia. That was very challenging, and that started to me when I was a very young kid. I mean, I was about 8 years old or something, and it went on for over 20 years. There would be two times when it was horrible, really, really bad, and it was mostly because I didn't know how to deal with my own emotions. So I grew up in a family where, all the happiness you actually get to show, but then when it comes about like those really challenging emotions, then I wasn't taught how to really express that or welcome, And of course, my parents did the best, like every parent out there, and I'm grateful for everything they have done and still do for me and my brother. But as a kid, I had no idea how to tap into my own inner world, how to soothe in my nervous system. And so it became super destructive, very destructive. Self-distorted image was really bad. Even I reached a moment when I was, here in the States, there's like size 00, so even in my head, I will see myself very fat in the mirror when logically I'd be like, wait a second, my genes say 00. I cannot definitely be fat. But that's how I felt, and how I began to heal that was I began to listen. I began to listen to my world. And of course, it wasn't very easy, right? I mean, not only was I having these things about bulimia and anorexia, but also super depressed and super anxious. And so all those things will combine together, and at times it would be like super intense that I wanted to stop. And by stopping, I mean like stop everything, like stopping my life, because I didn't know how to handle that. So when I was super depressed, and that's the phrase that you share, and thank you for sharing that. That's when really I questioned things. Prior to that, I didn't even think that life could be different. So it's like, okay, well, I guess that's how life is. I'm just depressed, anxious. I have all these other things, right? And so I became very curious, became super curious about the possibilities of something else out there for me. And I love how when things aligned, and we actually say, yes, I want something different, like the stars align and the universe to show you different ways. So that was super cool to witness at that moment, and to actually see it from this perspective of where I am right now in my life. And so I started with fitness first. So I became a bar instructor, then TRX instructor, Pilates, and then I moved into yoga meditation. So literally anything that will come my way, because I remember that I started to feel better, and the moments that I will take an hour to exercise or do yoga, and then I will realize that those thoughts will stop completely. So I'll be like, oh my goodness, okay, that's wonderful. That could happen. So how do I get to be there through my whole day? because then like that hour was great, but the rest of the day was awful. And it was all these practices that began to bring more self-awareness, like the sensations in my body that could be different than the sensations that I was having because of the suicide patterns, and then at the same time the bulimia, anorexia, and all these things in my mental world too. And when I started to learn about energy works, I started with Reiki. Then I felt that I had done that before. So I began to do Reiki on myself, but it was completely different than what my teachers had taught me. And I realized that for me, it was more an exploration of my being. And part of this exploration was to sit with my very crappy things. And I would realize, I will notice the pattern, when the bulimia thoughts and anorexia thoughts will come up super strongly. And then I will like have to like freeze. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to get out of the house, because then my idea was like, I'm so fat and I'm so hideous that people are going to look at me and be like, what are you doing in this planet? This is literally how I felt. And it's very challenging to accept those thoughts and sit with all of that. And my heart goes for anybody that has experience or is experiencing this, because it's not a very easy world to maneuver. And I'm grateful that my boyfriend knew what was going on, because I will share with him all these experiences. But then I really came into this thing that, nobody else is going to do this healing but myself. So I do have to learn to accept this of me, to accept my past. It's like, yes, I had 2 times, as I was saying, that these waves will come up really strongly and then leave, where I almost died from bulimia because it was too much, and I wasn't giving my body the nutrients that it needed, especially, like I said, starting super young when I was still developing. So then I was like, okay, I can accept that it happened, that I did that. And because of that, I'm still living with the consequences of what's happening in my mental world, in my emotional world, in my physical world, right? And also in my energetics. So slowly, because you have to realize, right, that for somebody that has been suffering for bulimia, anorexia, depression and anxiety, sitting still and meditate is not very easy, right? So even those things, I had to just do little by little. And I'm grateful that I've had really great yoga teachers and meditation teachers throughout my life. They will be very supportive about that too. And the space that they will create with their energy was amazing to feel at ease, in my being. So little by little, I sat, and I will make the space for myself as comfortable as I could, right? So obviously it wasn't easy to sit on the floor, so I will sit on a yoga block. I will put relaxing music, because without the relaxing music I couldn't relax, and my thoughts will be just going like crazy. And then little by little, those techniques just became something that I didn't need, right? But it didn't happen from night to day, right? It was a slow process. And little by little, I could increment, how long I will sit with myself, how long I will sit with my emotions. And especially that voice in me that kept telling me how hideous I was, right? And how worthless I was. And so slowly, I began to be like, what if we just have a conversation? What if I tell you that I am here listening, and I know how much you suffer, because it's me, right? So like, and I remember that. Feel like it was yesterday. But what if I told you that I'm just here to listen, and I'm not gonna complain about anything that you say or take anything personally or be hurt? All I want you is to express, and I'm just here, and I will love you as you are. So, telling that to myself, it was almost like that part of me will soften and then be like, huh, okay, you're here listening. Let me tell you, right? And of course, listening to that at the beginning was not very easy either, right? But then I'm like, okay, well, this is what I need, and this is what this part of myself needs. So then it became this wonderful conversation. Well, most of the time it was one sided, right at the beginning, from this part of myself. But then it became a conversation of me saying, like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I did this to you. And I'm so sorry that what we had around ourselves, especially, adults or older children, could now see your pain, right? But what can I do for you? How can I let you know that I deeply love you? And so slowly, it's just like my being will be telling me, I just need to be accepted. And this is what's the most thing, it's like I need to be accepted and I need to feel loved and that I matter. So then slowly I will tell my being everything, right? And I will start also to share about my current life. And it's like talk about where I was living at that moment and my boyfriend and all these things that we're doing. And because I was already holding space for others, be like, hey, look how much change we're actually creating in the world, right? And it wouldn't have happened had we not been in that space, right? So also thank you. And then slowly it was like, hey, would you like to come and be with me in this reality? So you don't have to experience that reality over and over and over again. And I did, like many times I held myself so deeply. And it sounds like, it was not a big deal, right? Like we're just having this conversation, but I will be massively in tears, like in my physical body will be shaking like crazy. And at times I didn't want to sit and listen to my inner world. But I knew I have to do this. And whether I do it today or tomorrow or in 10 years, it will be me doing it. So what's the difference from doing it today than doing it tomorrow or in a few years? And so because of that, and I knew the importance of it, because I didn't want to have that conflict inside of me anymore because it's like eating me alive, literally, for so long. And so I will do it for as comfortable as it would be. I will still sit. And of course, like I said at the beginning, it will be just like little time, incrementing until honestly, sometimes it would be like 2 hours long or more. But afterwards, the feeling that I will have will be like a rebirth, like, wow, I'm changed and I can feel that part of me, that it feels more in balance, that it feels accepted and it feels love. And I will give her everything that she needed at that moment in time. And I still do it. I mean, it's not like, I have it all figured out, right? There's still parts of me that still hurt. And I sit with those parts and I tell them, I'm here and I love you. What do you need? And the conversation begins, right? It's a beautiful thing, but that's what really helped me. That's what really helped me. And after that kind of conversation, then it really happened a big shift because there's an integration, right? Especially after releasing the root of bulimia and anorexia. Then it became about rewiring my brain then, because then I wouldn't have those emotions anymore. But the thoughts will still want to be there and be like, hey, remember me? And I'll be like, I do remember you. But I'm no longer in that space. But I thank you. And then let's just have a different conversation, right? So it was a beautiful process of many cycles, right? Of love, of acceptance. But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I went through all of that, because then I know how it could feel like for somebody else. And I could put myself in other people's shoes when they're suffering, because I've been through that suffering myself.
And it comes back down to that not understanding who we are, not feeling loved, seen, or heard, and that like total confusion in our mind, isn't it? And we just, who am I? Am I loved? What am I doing with myself? Where am I going? And self-love really is the key, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Calming that inner child within us and letting it know it's safe and loved and heard. And that
Mm-hmm.
really is the crux of the healing.
Yeah.
Um, but at the time, I think we had to go through that to work out what we needed ourselves. And I think you, like myself, it's changed our career path. It's totally changed our lives. So it's like we really had to feel that and go through that to change our lives. But as you say as well, to be able to help others, because we've been through it, we totally understand what those emotions are, what those voices are saying, and sitting with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you know what the wonderful thing about it is in that journey of forgiving myself, right? Because it started with like, yes, I want to accept myself and I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror and be like, wow, what a beautiful woman you are. But I also had to accept what I had done to myself and forgive myself, right? Not like stop blaming it on everybody else, because that's what I did for a long time. You know, I blame my parents and I blame this and that and all these things. And through this journey of like coming back into myself and loving myself and accepting myself unconditionally, then when my kundalini energy went up, and that is also what took me more into a deeper love that I never thought that I could feel, you know. And so, and of course it was again the same kind of journey in different ways, of course, you know, of seeing other parts of myself that I was hiding, and the pain that had been done to myself and the pain that I had induced on myself. And but on that it was very similar, you know, sitting with myself and accepting that part of myself and holding my inner child, but also holding, you know, my the teenager self, right, and the young adult, and it just be there like, what do you need and what can I provide to you, so then you can really know and you can trust me that I love you as you are, that there is nothing ever wrong with you, right? And again, like I said, it was a similar conversation for different kinds of reasons, and all that led into loving myself, but loving more also others and accepting others and having the patience and courage, but at the same time connecting so much deeper to energies, right, to what some people call it God or the universe, right, like source. And and it's been, yes, like you said, like life changing, and it changed my career as well. It's not like I'd, you know, as a kid I wanted to like help people. I for sure did. I remember watching this thing on TV when I was living in Lima, and Mother Teresa was on the TV, right, and she was helping all these children, and we talking about her. I'm like, who is that woman? You know, I want to do that. I want to help others. But of course, you know, I was a kid, right? And I wasn't really thinking, okay, that's what I'm going to be doing, right? But then life took me into the similar route, right? And I'm so grateful because that helping others, honestly, and especially seeing when they have an aha moment and a breakthrough, it's so dear to me, because again, I know how challenging it can be, you know, to do this inner work, and I know how challenging it is to be in a very dark space. But also I know, you know, once we start to walk into the light and see it, like how amazing it feels, you know. So I get super excited when I see others doing that, and I could be jumping up and down of happiness and giving them thanks for them being them, right, and for them trusting themselves and loving themselves, because why not love yourself, right? And it's like the very same thing that I had, you know. There are other paths in life, but it's up to us where we get to choose and what road we get to choose to walk.
Yes, yeah. And let me take you back to what you said about forgiveness, because that is so important, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And like yourself, I started out blaming my parents, my caregivers, and people around me, because I was looking for somebody outside of myself to blame. And whilst a part of me saw the blame outside of me because I didn't feel that I got what I needed,
Mm-hmm.
as I've healed, I understand that my parents and caregivers gave me all that they could give me, with the knowledge and skills they had at the time. So it wasn't that they withheld, it was more that I don't think they had the conscious awareness of what it was that I truly needed. And once I understood that, I was able to forgive and let go of holding
Yeah.
on to that bitterness and resentment. But then it comes back to us, doesn't it? We have to forgive ourselves for the things that we do. We punish our bodies
Mm-hmm.
because our mind isn't in a good space. So that forgiveness is so powerful to be able to move on into the healing phase.
Totally, totally. And it didn't come easy to me, right? Like again, I mean, I went through so many years of sabotaging my own happiness and punishing myself. And so I took it as a practice, right? I was like, okay, let me do it little by little, right? And see what happens, right? Because again, I did it, and that's the acceptance part of it. Like it was me, the one that binge. It was me, the one that just went to the bathroom multiple times to throw up. It was me, the one that took laxatives. It was me. It's not like somebody was forcing me to do that, even though for sure my headspace was not in the right space, right? But I couldn't. At the end of the day, I couldn't blame anybody, right? Because those were my actions. So then I had to take responsibility of the actions that I had done to myself, right? And begin to connect with my physical body too. There were so many times that I will play again relaxing music, right? And loving music and touch my body, and particularly my navel, my belly, and say, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. The Ho'oponopono practice, right? And I mean, like the first time that I did that, I cried so much because I felt the pain, and constantly I began to do that, right? Like little by little, again, like small increments at a time, because I knew like the power of that. And I knew that I wanted to connect in a deeper level to all my being. And I wanted my whole being to know, like, hey, I know I fucked up, I didn't know any better. And I was in such a deep pain that I thought that was like the best thing that I could do. But now I'm in this space and I know that I can change our relationship. And I just want to know, and I just want to tell you actually that I love you. I love you with everything, the light, the dark, that all in between, and all these things. And it was a beautiful way of reconnecting with myself. But again, I still do that. I still like tell my body at times I'm sorry or whatever, for whatever reason, because we're human. It's gonna happen that at times we say funky things, or at times we do funky things. And again, taking the time to say I'm sorry with me, right, to yourself, to others. And again, it became this practice to humble me more, but also to love myself, and because loving myself, loving others as well.
Yeah. And just letting that inner child know as well that they're safe and they're loved. And
Mhm.
that I'm sorry, like you said, for what I've put you through. And I didn't mean to do that. But as you said, I'm in pain, and, I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have the skills and knowledge
Yeah.
at that time to do whatever it was that I needed on my healing journey.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
so beautiful when we can calm our inner child, because it has a massive reflection outwards into us as we are now, doesn't it?
Totally, yes. And again, do you know that the safety is so important? And this is why I create a safety space around me every time that I wanted to sit, right? And I'm sure that it's different for most people, right? But for me, it was particularly like music. Let me put some music around and let me sit comfortably. And then from here, it just became into a ritual, literally. Like to be like, okay, so I in this particular present, I feel safe, right? So if I can feel safe in this space, means that I can also be in the space to hold my inner child and let them know that they can be safe. But again, the conversation will start with like little, right? So I will see my inner child and I'll just be like, sit far away, be like, hey, I'm here. If you want to play, let's play. And little by little, it will begin to trust me, right? because I mean, I couldn't just go straight into it because I didn't want to scare my inner child. I was already very scared and in a lot of pain. And so little by little, I built a relationship until, now we play around all the time.
That's so fabulous and so important as well to bring fun and joy to life. Thank
Yes,
you. Thank you.
of course.
You've shared so much, but could you share one tip with the listeners that they could help do or be or think about to on their own healing journey from anorexia and bulimia?
Yes, yes. This um, just like to me, it helped to really open up a conversation with my being, right? And I feel that that's something so crucial for healing anyway, for in whatever aspect of healing you are, right? Or healing anything. And so I would really recommend it to begin to open up that communication and know, okay, that it's not going to happen automatically, right? But I do believe that we have the power to be able to understand our beings because it's our being, right? So you as you'll be able to connect with your own being, right? And to take it step by step, right? So especially if it's something very massive, give yourself the grace of being like little by little, right? But it's a simple as sitting, and if sitting is not comfortable for you, you can recline in a chair. And sometimes, that if you don't fall asleep, you can also lay down and be very comfortable. But just begin it to tap into that pain, right? Like, where do you feel the pain? Do you feel it mostly on your navel? Do you feel it mostly in your heart, right? Because it might change, right? Depending on like the day and what's happening in your personal world. But so if you feel it on your navel, just you can even place your hands there and just be like, hey, I'm here, I'm here if there's anything that you would like to say to me. And everything is super welcome. All your emotions are super welcome. And I love you as you are, right? Because we have to let our inner world know, your inner child too, that even if they throw a fit and they are like screaming and all these things, that's super welcome. And I love you no matter what, right? And then little by little, because you're opening up that communication, then you might begin to feel something, right? If you do energy work, maybe you'll begin to see the energy too. And eventually you can even begin to hear, right? But again, give yourself the grace of like trying it little by little. And if for the first time, maybe you don't feel anything, do not give up, because it's not like I felt something the first time that I sat, I was just like feeling like my emotions in my mind would just go crazy. But like little by little, it's a practice, right? That you will remember how to connect with your own being. And maybe that will be the beginning. And then the more that you continue to do it, so you will find a way that will work the best for you. That might be a little different than my way, right? But the most important thing is that you're opening up that communication and you're letting your being know that it can talk, especially your inner child. It can talk, it can say whatever it wants to say, and you'll be there loving it. And from that, it will feel safe and it will trust you. And then it will begin to tell you everything and show you many things. So then both of you are in a wonderful relationship, and you can invite your inner child or any part of your being to come into your present reality, so they're no longer suffering, and you can create this experience together.
Beautiful. Thank you. And where could people find you?
So I'm very active on social media, on Instagram. My tag is the Heart Alchemista, so it's literally the Heart Alchemist, and then you can add an A afterwards. And that is my tags for everything, for like Facebook as well and TikTok. And you can also email me at info@rukmanicore.com. So it's like Kaur, the last one, core. And my website, the same thing, rukmanicore.com. And you can see all my offerings right there too. You can contact me to the website as well.
Super. And I'll put all that in the show notes below. Thank you so much, for Rukmani.
Of course. Thank you, sister.
Thank you for listening. Please share this podcast with anyone who you think will benefit. And can you leave me a review wherever you've listened to it to help me reach more people? Thank you.